Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris, joined today with Itzmoe. Yes, you guessed it, it's another DC movie, and I had to bring you on because you are like the biggest DC fan that I know on the entire internet. So thank you for joining me today. And as you can see from the title, we are talking about Aquaman, which is the latest movie in the DCEU, directed by James Wan, starring Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. And yeah, this is going to be fun. Usually we have like a little bit of back and forth before, so we kind of know our opinions on the movie, and I've kept it very vague so far. Um, you've been very public with your thoughts on the movie. I know that you love the movie, but this is going to be a very interesting review, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of hate directed towards me, as per usual with Aquaman or indeed any DC property. But please be nice. We all have other opinions. Like, please don't.
Yes.
Very, very toxic. But how are you doing today, anyway, Itzmoe?
I'm good. Thank you for having me again, and it's nice to talk to you. And yeah, I'm really curious about what you're gonna say. But also, I just want to say, if anyone is watching who likes DC, like, don't be like hating someone because they don't like a DC movie. Like, you might not like it, but I'm still gonna be his friend, okay?
Yes.
Still be respectful and be friends. Not everyone's gonna like the movies you like. Just don't be jerks about it. That's it. So
yes, please be respectful, like Itzmoe is, like, because a lot of people weren't respectful to me in comments. They really hated me. That was by the way, go and watch my reading hater comment video on Aquaman. That was an absolute blast to make. Please go and watch that. But yes, so Aquaman. We don't have a plan thing. Usually we start talking about spoiler free, and then later in the review we'll give you guys a heads up, and then we'll get into spoilers later on down the line. I really have no idea where to start with this thing. I guess I'll start with our opinions on trailers and everything like that, and kind of, I don't want to backtrack so far in the DCEU, but I feel like we need to talk about Justice League just a little bit. Justice League was a very... Okay, in my opinion, it wasn't a good movie, like, at all, but it did have a lot of problems, obviously, with the director switch around and the reshoots and everything like that. Kind of Frankenstein's monster and get into a film that it wasn't originally was. But that was kind of our first look at Aquaman. And I even said at the time, like, I didn't like the take on Aquaman in that he was very broy. He was kind of like a frat boy. He was drinking, he was guzzling like Jack Daniels down in slow motion with his shirt off and then crashing into a wave. That wasn't Aquaman to me. It didn't feel like it was there. So when I saw the trailers for this movie, and we got that great trailer where we see him in the classic costume, in the orange with the green gloves and the trident and everything, it felt very much like a course correction. Obviously, they had to base the character on what we'd seen before in like the short little video clip that we saw in Batman versus Superman, and then what we saw of him in Justice League. So they had to go with that mold of the character, but I was really hoping that by the end of this movie, they took that character that maybe wasn't great for me the first time, and they brought him into that interpretation of the Aquaman character that I wanted to see and that I know. And I was actually really pleased when oh god, I've just forgotten his name, the director. Oh my god, what's the director's
James
name?
Wan.
James Wan. Yes, how did I forget that? He's one of my favorite directors. I really love James Wan's work. He's most notably like a horror director. He's directed the first two Conjuring movies, Insidious, and the first Saw movie. But he has done action movies before. He did Fast and Furious 7, which, you know, it was a fine movie. It wasn't my favorite Fast and Furious movie, but the guy's a versatile director, okay?
Yeah.
So as soon as I saw his name attached, I was instantly interested, although I might not have been interested in seeing, you know, like another DC movie, maybe, like post-Justice League. With his attachment to it, I thought, okay, this is him. You know, he's a solid director. I've loved his work before, and I want to see what he brings to the superhero genre. So that was kind of my thoughts going into it beforehand. I'm guessing you were just like all for this thing, like right from the
yeah. Well, I saw it, like, I know, like, Aquaman is not exactly like, it's a little bit different from like in the comics, but I saw it as like, you know, that's Jason Momoa's like his interpretation of it is more like it's like they incorporated more of his personality in there, like, you know, that's how I felt, like, you know, him saying like "my man." I feel like that's something like Jason Momoa would say. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like making it his own in a way, and also more BA, because, you know, a lot of people make fun of Aquaman, so it's kind of like, I felt like, oh yeah, you're gonna make fun of Aquaman now, he's gonna kick your butt, you know. So that's kind of how I saw like the interpretation. But yeah, James, I did like, you know, Fast and Furious 7, and I haven't seen the horror movies that he's done. I want to, especially because I like Patrick Wilson, but
he's great. Patrick Wilson.
But I also felt like, you know, I'm just interested to see like how he was going to, interpret this, especially because he's never done a superhero movie before. So I was very excited. So.
And I mean, even the supporting cast of this thing, like when names started coming out, like Dolph Lundgren, for example. I'm a huge lover for like 80s action movies, especially Rocky IV, Ivan Drago, and especially because he was in Creed 2. I feel like I've been very spoilt with Dolph Lundgren this year, particularly. You got Nicole Kidman was announced, Willem Dafoe as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this cast was big. The criticism going into me was Jason Momoa. In my opinion, Jason Momoa is a fine actor. If anyone's seen him in the first season of Game of Thrones as Khal Drogo, he works best when he's playing that very barbarian-like alpha male, kind of guttural speaking, head honcho kind of character. That's when Jason Momoa plays a character like that. I think that's perfect casting. When he's given dramatic material to work with, I'm like, maybe not. And as you said, like he brings a lot of those quips into it, and you think that's definitely his sense of humor. But I think that's that more bro-y kind of sense of humor that I wanted to see them do away with.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of don't in this movie for the most part. I don't want to go too in depth into it, but I will say that one of the biggest problems that I had with this movie was the script. I think the script very much let it down. I think in terms of direction, it was directed beautifully, and we'll talk more about some like the action scenes and the set pieces and everything like that. Love that. To me, it was mostly the script that let it down. And I think that was because, and I'm not just raging on DC now, this was something that Thor Ragnarok did, and it drove me absolutely insane. And what a lot of the Marvel movies do, they tee up a very dramatic, emotional moment, but then they'll have to throw like a joke or something quippy at the end, and it draws you out of that moment completely. There's a moment in this movie where I was starting to see Jason Momoa as this dramatic lead, and I was like, okay, I'm really into his character now, where he's talking with Patrick Wilson, and they kind of had an estranged childhood, but he's like, for the longest time growing up, I wish I could have known you. I always wanted to meet you. And it's this great moment, and you're invested, and he goes, but now I see what a dick you are. And I'm just like you had it and you lost it, like in that line. And that happens so much for me throughout the script, and that drew me out a little bit. I don't know if you had the same thing or if you didn't mind so much with the script.
I definitely noticed that, but a lot of like the audience laughed at those lines, and I laughed too. I just thought as like, I did see it as like maybe they were just trying to like be like, because the constant criticism is, oh, DC's too serious, so they're like, let's be less serious. But I felt like these like kind of quips or whatever were like not as bad as like the ones in Justice League. I felt like Justice League had some like pretty bad ones. So Joss. So sorry. But yeah, I definitely noticed that too. Like maybe they could have done without some of those. Yeah. But I did like that moment too. When he was talking about like, now that you brought it up, I kind of like. It was funny, but maybe it could have done without that. Especially like in that scene, I thought that was like actually like a good one.
Yeah.
And then also like, was this one another one where like they went to see like the message and she got the water from like his forehead or whatever, and he's like, oh, I could have just peed on it or something like that.
So I brought that moment up in like one of my biggest criticisms in the trailer, and I was like, oh god, this movie is going to be terrible. All through the movie. That was no one laughed during this entire film, in my screening anyway.
Oh, really? Wow.
Audience, so
well, but aren't you guys like more serious though? British?
Oh yeah, as British people are so serious. We don't laugh at anything. We're all just like. But especially that line in particular, like could have just peed on it, and she kind of has that reaction. There was so much dead air there; it was so uncomfortable to watch.
Oh, okay.
It was just like it was like a laugh track. You were waiting for the laugh track to kick in, and it didn't. And it was just like, this is awkward. Can we please move on? Going with the performances as well. We need to talk about Amber Heard. I will get to positives. I do have positives with the movie. I'm just gonna I'm gonna start with the bad, and then I'm gonna get into the good. So my review is very balanced. I didn't like her in this movie at all. I didn't think that they had great chemistry at all. They kind of play it with the whole like he's the kind of dumb like brawn, no brains, and she's kind of having to keep him in check. But they just repeat that motif all the way through the movie. And I don't know if it was a performance or just anything, but I didn't really get a sense of a character from her. And they try and do like these romantic scenes, there's a moment involving the romance which is shot beautifully. It's one of the most gorgeous shots in the entire movie, and I can't say what it is because that's spoilers, but there's a moment where like the camera like 360s around them.
Yes, I was like, I love that shot.
It kind of reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, where Will and Elizabeth kiss on the ship at the end, and it kind of goes into slow-mo. But I don't think it was earned like at all. Like, you knew they were going to get together because it's like, you know, typical cliche kind of thing, like the main guy, the main girl. But I just didn't get any kind of romantic chemistry at all with them.
Okay.
And I thought honestly, like, I thought she was the worst one in the movie in terms of acting performance. I don't hate women. I don't hate Aquaman. That's just the problem that I had. I don't think anyone else had, or maybe people loved her and thought she was great.
Well, I will say that I wasn't blown away by her performance.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought she was like kind of like, yeah, I don't know if like the weakest, but one of the weaker ones. I was like waiting, I guess, for like a little something more from her. But I thought maybe like they did have some chemistry, but I don't know. I felt like maybe she could have I like Emma Watson like being the best. Like I felt like she could have done better. Like it's like something was missing there. Like I couldn't really feel like I don't know. But
to me, like, because I've seen everywhere, and this isn't just like Marvel people. I don't want to put this into two camps, Marvel and DC. Like, why can't we all just get along and like both things, right? I think that Aquaman, maybe this is like the comic books as well. If we're comparing it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this movie is definitely more like this universe's version of Thor. And I think that in terms of the actual narrative, it's very similar. Aquaman may have come first in terms of the comic books before Thor. I don't know the exact dates on that. So maybe Marvel completely copied DC in this regard. I don't know. But I'm thinking about what we've seen on the big screen before, right? And in terms of like a story, I didn't feel like it was doing anything new, really. There's a little bit of Lion King in there in terms of like vying for the throne. There's some political intrigue in there. And this kind of underdog who's rejecting the throne, but eventually...
There's a lot of Disney movies, like kind of references, or not references, but like it's like you get different feels. It's like I feel a little bit of like Aladdin. I feel like for me, I was like, this is very Little Mermaid. This is Aladdin right here, and the Lion King too with the two brothers. So, I mean,
there's even a scene where an octopus plays like a drum set, so you know it's exactly like Under the Sea in that regard. But in terms of Thor, like I think the comparisons are unavoidable. You've got this kind of bro-y character who's got to destined to become like the almighty Thor, or this kingly character who's got a very deceitful brother who's working behind the scenes, who wants the throne for himself, and wants to launch an attack on the inferior human. Very, very similar in that regard. And although that's the problem, and you can stick with a tried and tested story like that, I think because we have seen that relatively recently with the Thor movies, I thought maybe this was their chance to do something new with it. But then I guess if the story ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, don't try to do too much stuff with it. I'm going to talk about some positive things now, and then segue to something else. The conceptual design of like the city designs and most of the outfits, some of them are very silly, and I'll talk about that in my negative. Some of the outfits are incredibly silly. But what I loved about this, and I think this is probably down to James Wan's directing as well, when we've seen Aquaman before, and even indeed like some of the other superheroes, I cast my mind back to Man of Steel, for example, where I think they refer to Superman by name once, and it almost felt they were ashamed to say the name Superman. It's like, you're making a comic book movie, you've got the material there, just go with it. Don't try and ground it. Don't try and, it's almost like you're ashamed to make one. And when we got Aquaman in Justice League, he was in this very more realistic sort of like metal shoulder guard and everything like that. You could tell he was Aquaman, absolutely, with the trident and everything, but you look at the comic book, right, and he's in bright orange and he's in bright green and all the like Ocean Masters costumes, weird and wonderful and wacky. And I just love that this movie embraced the real campiness of Aquaman. And like, you've got people riding on seahorses, you've got people summoning underwater creatures, you've got crab people. Like, it didn't shy away from any of that, and it was very fantastical and like a visual spectacle in that regard. So absolutely, I think like if you were to buy like an art book of this movie, like the art of Aquaman, where you've got the concept designs, the suits and the environments, I think that would be really cool. Actually, I was getting some. There's even some moments where they're flying these shuttles throughout the underwater city, and it reminded me of Blade Runner. The
Oh
music is
yeah.
very like techno, and it reminded me of that a little bit.
Mhm.
And even Avatar in some parts as well. You've got like the very neon, dazzling visuals going on. My problem is that the visuals aren't consistent throughout the movie. I'm not
Oh.
going to lie, there are some moments in this movie where like the environments look great. Absolutely. Some of the end battle sequences look amazing. Like the final act of this movie is like, Jesus Christ, this is great. This is the stuff I wanted to see the entire movie.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, the CGI does look very ropey for me. A lot of it is green screen. Some of it's unavoidable. That's fair enough. But there are some moments where it's like you could have shot that at like a real location, a real set. And the lighting and the depth between the characters in the foreground and the background didn't match, and you could just tell that everything was pretty much constructed in a computer. Which, when you're doing like Atlantis and everything like that, of course that has to be CGI. You can't make that stuff practical. But I think even in like the real world, when they go into that temple, for example, and they listen to the hologram of King Atlan, the background behind them is completely CGI, and it's just like, just build like some pillars behind them and like make it, you know what I mean? And also when they're swimming underwater, most of the time, and I did bring this up in my reaction video, and I think I said at one point that there's no real costumes in the movie. It looks like everyone's on a CGI body. I know they did build costumes, but for the most part, you can tell they've like photoshopped someone's head and just stuck it on a body and had them swim across the camera. It looked very much like Green Lantern to me with Ryan Reynolds, you know, where they just stuck his head on a CGI costume. And I don't know how I feel about that. It looked very fakey fake through most of this movie, and I don't know how well this is gonna, how these visual effects are going to age over the next couple of years. There are some scenes as well where it just looked like the CGI was straight up unrendered, like it didn't have time. You can see the stuff that did get given enough time, and it looks fantastic. But there's some things that really stood out to me and went like, ooh, that's kind of like Gods of Egypt level CGI. If you remember that movie, no one remembers that movie. That movie came out and just like no one remembered it.
I didn't watch it. So.
But yeah, I've been talking enough. I'm going to pass over to you now. I'm going to get some.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm like not the best at like the only way I can kind of tell like bad CGI is like when it's really bad. Like subtle things I can't really notice.
Yeah.
So like in Justice League I definitely noticed like,
oh yeah,
it was
I went back and watched some clips before seeing this. I couldn't even remember how bad some of that CGI was.
Yeah,
so they didn't have much time for it, right? Like with the reshoots and everything, they never seemed like they had a set focus, so they were probably working on that CGI right until deadline. So
but I thought Aquaman was so much better in terms of like the VFX and things like that. But I do agree with I don't like when it's like too much, like when there are things that like you could shoot on a practical like location, you know, actual like on location, like I would prefer that. But you know, yeah, Atlantis I thought looked great, and then I thought the last scene when it was like rainy and everything, when they arrest like Orm, and I thought that looked like, I mean, I could tell that was CGI, but like, I thought it still looked pretty good.
Yeah.
So and then, but I didn't know about like the temple. Like you said, it was CGI. Like for me, I bought it. I thought it was like a practical thing. So that's why if it's like not too horrible, I can't really tell. Only if it's like really bad. So overall, like I thought it was really good. And then also when I saw it at the premiere, I saw it twice. I've seen it twice already. The first time was at the actual like the blue carpet, because it was blue carpet premiere with the cast and James Wan and everything. And the screen was huge. It was like IMAX, and I was in the front row. So me and my friends were like, and so when we're in Atlantis, we're like, oh my god, I feel like we're in here. So like that kind of affects like the way we see it, because it's like so big, and we're like, oh my god, it's so magical, you know. And then I saw it yesterday on a smaller screen, but it was 4DX, so I saw it in 3D with the like motion and everything. So that was also really cool, because especially when you're underwater, it's like it's moving around, like you're floating. I'm like, ew. So I've seen it in 3D and with the big screen. So I think, I don't know.
Now you need to see it in 2D like I did. So between us, we've seen all the different forms.
Yeah. So maybe it won't look as cool, but like I heard that like James Wan intended for people to see it like in IMAX or something. I don't know. But I feel like most superhero movies, like you kind of have to see them like in order to get like a good experience, because also you can't really have that at home. Like 2D, you can kind of have that at home, but like when I can see like a movie like that in like a bigger screen with a 40x and all these things that you can't have at home. I like to do that so I can actually feel like the full get the full impact.
And the sound system as well, like the sound in this movie is fantastic. So you know, whether it's the explosions or whether it's like the entire ending war sequence, essentially, like, you know, like you kind of need to see that stuff on a big screen.
Oh, I will say there was a part that I thought was a little like cheesy. Like,
is it spoilers or have we seen it in trailers?
I don't know because I didn't watch all the trailers. I only watched like the first one.
Okay, if you
think it's not a plot point. It's not like any
that's fine.
Plot point. It's just like a shot.
Okay.
And I think it seems like something that would be in a trailer. So it's a shot of like Aquaman and Merrick walking out of the water, and there's like this music, like trying to look all cool, something like this. And
it was like the Bond girl, right? From like, is it Doctor No, like Ursula Andress, like coming out of the water thing? Yeah.
I was like, okay, this moment, like it's kind of cool, but I felt it was a little try hard.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I felt like that would fit better in like a comedy or something, not like in a superhero movie. Like that's something I would do because I like making comedies, so I would do a shot like that. But like, it was like a little like maybe like Shazam or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we got a trailer for that, by the way, before this one. Like, I forgot that was happening. Like, I did a trailer reaction to Shazam, and that was months. That was San Diego Comic-Con, I think, when that trailer came out, wasn't it, or something like that? So hopefully we'll have a trailer too for that. I don't know what to make of Shazam so far. It could be like another Deadpool if done right, but I don't know where I stand on that. It's a unique superhero movie, I will say that, judging from the trailer.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that there were parts that felt like a comedy, and although, as I said, like there is some like quippy, funny lines throughout. One more negative, and then I promise I'm going to get into some other positives. I think this was a long movie for me to sit through, man. Like this was 2 hours 23 minutes. That's a long time, and especially because it's a story, you know, and you know where it's going to go. I think one of the biggest problems that I had with this movie was the pacing. It starts off pretty good. You get, you know, like your little bits of origin story there, which was nice to see. I always love origin. And yes, I even like to see Bruce Wayne's origin story, whether it's told 10 times, 100 times in every version of Batman you reboot. I think you should show the origin, but I digress anyway. So you get some nice stuff of that, and then it kind of snaps back to present day, and then you continue to get kind of like the Man of Steel way thing of doing things, like the non-linear story where there'll be certain moments that he reflects on, and then you'll get like a clip of a flashback. And the first act was okay. Like, I was like, okay, it's pretty standard, but it's okay. Where the movie really dragged for me was the second act, where they get to the Sahara Desert. And even like the tone of the movie changed for me. It almost became like this kind of buddy road movie with Mira and Aquaman, and it almost becomes like National Treasure or Indiana Jones, where we've got to go to this location to find this clue, which will lead us to this place, and they're trying to find like an artifact. That whole part of the movie completely dragged for me. And then it kind of coasted at that, but then the third act really ramped up to the kind of stuff that I wanted to see the entire movie, and was great. So that second act like really killed me, really killed me. And I think that was right, because I mentioned that 2 people walked out of the movie. I think it was roughly around that point. And general consensus, when the movie finished, I was listening to some people, there was like little kids there as well, and they were like, I didn't like that. I thought it was boring. I was like, oh, okay, that's it. Because obviously, like, we go and see them, we love comic book movies, right? But like when little kids, which is like their jam, right? Like little kids, anything, for them to say it was boring, I was like, oh, okay. But I don't know how this is doing critically. I think it's sitting on like 60-something% right now on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's kind of middle of the road in terms of critical consent. Yeah, 67%, which is, you know, it's still good. It's kind of like the higher end of average, but it's still okay. But now, positives. So I mentioned that the pacing, I didn't like that. What I really did like was the directing in terms of the action sequences. There's a scene that was released in this extended video trailer. I don't know if it was trailer 2, but you got more of a sense of the middle section of the movie. And there's this entire extended action sequence with Black Manta and like his soldiers chasing them over rooftops. And it was almost like Uncharted, the video game. I don't know if you've ever played that. Like this Assassin's Creed style free running over the rooftops. With the direction, it was so easy to film like an action sequence like that with very shaky camera and like quick edits, and you can't really tell what's going on. James Wan uses so many one-shots in this movie where the camera will track over an entire location. You get such a good sense of geography. You understand where the characters are in relation to each other. So you don't get lost in the hodgepodge of all the crazy action that's going on. Like Aquaman and Mira are split up. They're like being pursued by two different people, but the camera will move freely between them, so you exactly know where they are. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. At the beginning of the movie, and I guess I'm sort of like we're talking about little bits. We're not talking about like film breaking spoilers here. There's a moment with Nicole Kidman where she has a fight scene towards the very beginning of the movie with a trident, and the camera sort of rotates around her in a one shot, so you can see like how cool she is and everything like that, but also a sense of the action. You don't get lost in it. And in the very ending battle sequence of the movie, it's honestly probably one of my favorite shots I've seen in a movie this year. It's like in the middle of the war and something will happen, but it's almost like a game of mousetrap where that links to this and then this catapults this, and it follows it for about 30 or 40 seconds of this event happening across the battlefield. And I just thought that was incredible. Like, he didn't need to put that in the movie, but it was a very stylistic thing that he did, and he kind of did that throughout the entire movie, so I absolutely loved that stuff.
Cool. I agree with that was like one of my favorite things too, is just like the action, and that was definitely my favorite sequence like in the whole film, is the rooftop, that whole, like I remember when I saw it in the trailer, I'm like,
yeah.
And then just because I and then I'm just thinking like how, like that was not an easy thing, like so much planning had to go into so I respect when like they can pull off like things like really long takes and stuff like that, especially with like all this going on, and you know, one person's on this side, the other person's here. I'm just like, oh my god. So yeah, that was awesome. That was like one of the pluses of this movie, the action.
Another plus for me, and I want you to talk about this character because I don't know much about this character at all. I know the character's look, and that's pretty much it. And I remember, like, I haven't read any of the Aquaman comics, but I've seen what the characters look like visually in like character encyclopedias and fact files and stuff that I had as a kid. I want you to talk about Black Manta, because I thought Black Manta was awesome in this movie. The fact that they pretty much replicated the costume pretty much verbatim right off the page. He is a very ridiculous looking character in the comic books, and I think it's a character that would be very difficult to translate to screen and make it authentic. I did kind of say he looks a bit like a Power Rangers villain. He looks like one of the Ectomorphicons from Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, if anyone knows what that is. But I again, like, embracing the campiness, embracing the visuals and costumes of the Aquaman comic book. They did it, and they made it work, and I thought he was definitely one of the most compelling characters in the entire movie. You understand why he was doing what he was doing. There was like a moral gray area with something that Aquaman did towards the beginning of the movie. Like, I bought it. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I thought because I actually liked the way, like, I've always thought he was like a really cool looking like character, and I thought they did such a great job with like how he looked in the movie. I'm like, oh. It's just because a lot of times, like, I'm okay with like them, like some fans get mad when like, oh, they changed the costume, and I'm like, well, sometimes it's not gonna look as good if you replicate it exactly. But I felt like in this movie, like a lot of them were like comic accurate, and I felt like they did a good job with that. And it didn't look horrible. So yeah, I thought he looked so BA.
Do you know much about the character's backstory in the comics at all? Because I didn't know if they'd like actually taken his origin story, if they changed it for the movie or something like that.
I don't know that much about his origin story. I just know like from when I've seen him in like animated like the shows or movies and stuff. I just know he like is like a villain, but I don't really know like too much about like his background and stuff. So,
and kind of tied with the pacing, and I don't know. I think this was maybe they did such a good job with that character. I wanted to see more. We don't really get much of him, in all honesty. Like, I was going into this movie expecting him to be pretty much like the head honcho bad guy. I know we have another villain in the movie, and maybe that was a good thing, because so many of these superhero films do kind of like bog their movie down with way too many villains. Sometimes less is more. But there are some moments where you're watching the movie and it'll snap back to Black Manta, and it's like, we haven't seen this guy for like 40 minutes of screen time, it seems like. Well, and I think maybe they could have boosted his screen time, maybe, to like keep his presence known throughout the movie, because there were moments where sadly I kept forgetting he was in the movie because so much other stuff's happening. We're cutting between political intrigue in Atlantis, we're cutting to them like searching for a trident here. The movie does move around considerably. You've definitely got like a lot of different factions and a lot of things that the movie's juggling, so I can understand them not throwing him into the mix as well, but I would like to have seen a little bit more of him.
Well, I think the reason that he was kind of like more teased is because like I think they're gonna make a sequel, and I think he's gonna be the main villain for the sequel. And did you see the scene, the mid-credit scene? Okay.
I'm moving into spoilers for this bit right now, but yeah, there is a mid-credit scene. There isn't an after-credit scene.
Because you said people left, so I don't know if maybe you left and you didn't see that scene.
No, I'm I'm not new to this game. It's a superhero movie. I know we're going to get credit scenes.
Okay.
Sometimes with Marvel you get like 2 or 3. It's like fairly ridiculous, but this one you just get one mid-credit scene. And yeah, it's like I don't know if it's already been confirmed they're going to do an Aquaman 2. I think they're pretty much set that they're very happy with this. It's made a lot of money so far. It was done on a budget of between 160 to 200 million, and it's made just shy of 500 million right now. And it's been released in like the first week, right? So
I'm gonna say something about Black Manta that kind of annoyed me. Not about him, but like the audience in my screening yesterday, because I guess they're not really big into comic books, and not everyone is. Obviously, they're not like they don't have that background. But like when the first time they've heard the Black Manta name in the movie, they were like laughing, ha ha ha, Black Panther. Like they were saying that they're trying to copy Black Panther. I'm like, no, they're not trying to copy Black Panther. First of all, he's a villain. Black Panther is not a villain. Like just because they both have black and they're both played by black actors doesn't mean they're copying it. I just wanted to like no. They're not copying them.
If you went through like a list of all the superheroes in history that have
Marvel copied more from DC, I'm just saying. Marvel copied more from DC. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell them too. Like, excuse me, Marvel copied more. Okay. So,
see, you got that where people thought they were copying from Black Panther and Marvel.
Yeah.
I got people that I think were laughing at the name or like shocked at the name because it's a black actor. Like, can they say that? Like when he goes like, "Call me Black Manta," they were like,
But he's the one that said it. If he had a problem with it, he wouldn't say it.
That's the character. That's the comic book. That's his name. Don't change his name. You know.
It's not he's gonna be like African American Manta. He's not gonna say that. Like, and if you didn't have a problem with Black Panther calling himself Black Panther, like don't have a problem with Black Manta. Like,
it's just, I don't get people like that. It's just I don't know if it's like people being really overly sensitive or what, but it's like that's the character's name. Just go with it. You know what I mean?
And I just a correction because I was looking up the characters. So like, okay, so actually Aquaman came like almost 20 years before Thor.
Okay.
Yeah, Aquaman, his first appearance was November 1941 in More Fun Comics, and then Thor was August of 1962. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because Marvel always copies DC. I'm just kidding.
Well, the thing is, Thor's the weird one, right? Where it's based on mythology. It's based on a pre-existing Norse mythology where you do have these characters like Odin and Thor and Loki, and they do have these familial relationships, and tensions and everything like that. So I guess they're just translating that. But it's, as I said, like in terms of like visuals and how the story moves. If Aquaman did it first, that's fair enough. Okay, I didn't know. Like, so I'm glad you fact checked that for me. Going with Black Manta, and we're kind of like getting into like little bits of spoilers here. I don't want to like spoil the whole movie, but we're just talking about like key little moments. The origin story for Black Manta, or kind of what sets him up for doing what he wants to accomplish by killing Aquaman throughout the movie. I was worried at first with how they characterized Aquaman, and it was kind of taking me back to Man of Steel, where Superman is just leveling this city. He's fighting Zod, yes, but he's putting him through skyscrapers. There's buildings falling down. Thousands of people are probably dying, and we don't actually see Superman save anyone, at least in that first movie. And I know that was a big criticism, and then they tried to like add more of those scenes in. And we do get Aquaman saving people, but there's a moment where this isn't like the good Superman where he will save everyone, or Batman like the animated series where he's got a villain who could die. Batman will always save that because he doesn't want to break his one rule. Aquaman just like straight up leaves someone to die in a very like horrible way. And I was really worried. I thought like, oh no, we're going to have like this really violent, unheroic Aquaman. But they bring that up later in the movie where he kind of looks back and regrets it and says, maybe that wasn't the right decision. Like, I have essentially created a monster. I have created this enemy. I need to deal with this. So when they brought that back into the narrative and they made a point of that and the character addressing that, I was more okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
There was also this, I don't know if you saw this, it's a very, very small moment in the movie, but I did kind of laugh, and I think some other people pointed it out. It's just sort of like as the whole rooftop sequence is coming to an end, and like this church collapses with like a bell on it or something, and you see a shot of Aquaman like with civilians like lifting this rubble off a guy's legs, and you think like, oh, his legs are crushed or something. He just gets up and runs off and he's fine. I was like, would his legs be crushed or something? Like I was expecting him to like crawl out or Aquaman to carry him out. He just gets up like nothing even happened and just runs off. So I thought that was funny. Very, very small moment. That's me nitpicking right there.
But I do that also like kind of stood out to me too with the like leaving that person, because I was like, Superman wouldn't do that, Batman wouldn't do that. Wonder Woman, like, yeah, they would not do that, and I was like, okay. But then they brought it up later.
In this universe, Batman would. He'd straight up like give that guy the clip with like a gun. He doesn't care. Batman kills in this universe.
No, I feel like he would still. I don't know. But I am glad that they kind of yeah. I don't want to, but yeah, that they brought it up later, I guess. And that because it kind of reminded me like when he was like in like when he with the bell and everything, that scene kind of reminded me of like Wonder Woman with the town and everything. Yeah, it's like that was like his little scene where he's like kind of helping like the civilians and stuff. So I thought that was cool that they actually showed that like oh, he actually does want to like help and save people and stuff like that. So
the last person we need to talk about, and then we'll probably round off with like overall thoughts, and if there's any other like scenes you want to mention, like spoiler scenes, we can talk about that. I think we've pretty much like gone through this movie as much as we can, I think, but we need to like get some Patrick Wilson love in this review.
Yes, my boo, I met him at the premiere. He's so handsome.
This guy is awesome. Like, I don't think I've ever like, even if I don't like the movie he's in, which is very rare, he's always great in it. He always gives it his absolute all. He is great in this movie as Ocean Master. He kind of embraces the campiness with it, but he's also still very threatening in the movie. Like, he has a great presence in the film. There's like this whole political intrigue stuff going in there where he's behind the scenes. And what I love the most as well, and this kind of goes with the conceptual design of the movie, I loved seeing the lore of this realm, sort of like different traditions they had. By the way, there was one brilliant bit where, I don't know if he says to Willem Dafoe, take him to the Ring of Fire, but it's another movie with Willem Dafoe playing an underwater character, taking a character to a location called the Ring of Fire, Finding Nemo. You know, I expected like Bloat and the Fish Tank Gang to be like, or like that whole thing from Finding Nemo. It's like one of my favorite bits from that movie. No, I thought Patrick Wilson was great, and you know, like this might be spoilers, but they keep it open ended where he could come back in another one, and I hope he does. If this gets a sequel, that's fair enough. It seems to me now DC's tact with movies. And there are some lines in this movie that do directly tie back. You get a mention of Steppenwolf, for example, from Justice
League. That was the only mention back to Justice League.
Yeah.
It's like you just threw it in there.
Which is probably a good...
You defeated Steppenwolf. Okay, we mentioned it. Let's move on.
It's probably a good thing we only get one reference to that movie. I was just like, oh, thank you, movie, for reminding me that movie existed. I feel
like you have to, because, you know, at least mention it, because that's how we met him, so...
Like, okay, if we have to. But, it seems like they're moving, especially with Wonder Woman and this movie, it seems like they're moving for more of a standalone movie now. I don't know if they've completely abandoned the idea of the shared universe, but we know that there's some background stuff going on with whether Henry Cavill will return, whether Affleck will return, and I think they're unsure of their current state of the DCEU at the moment. So they're just going to focus on these standalone movies, like a standalone Aquaman movie. We're getting a direct sequel to the Wonder Woman movie. Shazam's coming out, and I know they've confirmed like a whole bunch of them. So I don't know. I don't know where they.
Birds of Prey is already starting. So yeah.
But I think I pretty much talked about everything I can in this movie. I will say I was very let down with the soundtrack of the movie.
It was very interesting. I thought like it's a mix.
Yeah, no, it definitely is a mix. It's definitely versatile, but I've always said this. I love my memorable superhero theme, a theme that you can...
Yeah, there's no Aquaman theme.
There's no Aquaman theme. And there's a moment in this movie, the very last shot of the movie, where that was your prime time to just drive that theme home and just end on absolute Aquaman hype. And the music really let it down. It's not like an awful soundtrack, but there wasn't anything particularly memorable in it for me. And, you know, if you're thinking back to, like, other superhero movies, you've got, like, Danny Elfman's Batman theme, immensely memorable. probably the most memorable theme of all time to me. It's my favorite piece of music ever written for a film character. Is John Williams' Superman March. Danny Elfman's Spider-Man. Just leave it to Danny Elfman and John Williams to do the themes, right? Like the Spider-Man.
Hans Zimmer too. You don't like any of Hans Zimmer's?
No, I prefer Danny Elfman's style more. Like to me, that is the Batman theme. But Hans Zimmer's stuff for
and he did Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Junkie XL.
And you know, like that theme is memorable to Wonder Woman. Like when that played all the way throughout, every time she showed up, pretty much in Batman versus Superman, they brought that theme back. Thank God for Wonder Woman. That theme is now tied to that character. When I hear that theme, I go, boom, Wonder Woman. You could play anything from this soundtrack and I wouldn't know it's Aquaman. And I just thought that I just like having my themes. That goes for Marvel as well. Marvel are terrible with musical continuity. They will establish a theme for a character, get a different composer for the sequel, and they don't carry any of the same music over. I think the only thing that's had like a theme that's like recurred is the Avengers theme. And it's a great theme, and I tie it to the Avengers because it's memorable now. That's just something with me, with like a lover of film music, that I was just a bit let down with the music of this film. We'll go into overall opinions, and then if there's any other scenes you want to talk about or anything like that, we can do. Although I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Well, there's a couple that I can't really talk about that I really like that got me all like.
Should we do overall opinions first, then, and then you can talk about those you want to bring up?
Yeah, because I wanted to know what you thought about them.
Okay, no, that's cool. Yeah, no, we'll do overall opinions now, and then we'll segue straight into spoilers. So for me, guys, I didn't like this movie. I wanted to like this movie. Is it the worst movie in the DCEU? No. It moves like a movie. It feels like a movie. It feels written like a movie. Whereas perhaps some of the earlier ones, especially Batman versus Superman, I mentioned that was a film where it almost felt like you could rearrange the scenes in any order and the movie would still play in normal order. There's definitely more of a focus here with the direction, and I absolutely love James Wan directing this movie. The biggest faults for me were the script. I think the script considerably let it down, and some of the special effects, whilst great and a spectacle in some scenes, they're never consistent. Some of the costumes look like they're made of plastic. Some of them look like it's unrendered CGI. And so it just, you know, I needed that mix there because it's a very effects-heavy movie. I don't know if they had loads of time to work on it or maybe not get things up to scratch. But I like that they embraced the campiness of it all. You know, like Aquaman, like a load of people hate Aquaman in the comic, but just like the comic book character. And I've never understood why. To me, he's always a really cool character. And when you do get scenes in the movie where you see people riding seahorses, where you've got like a cavalry charge of seahorses going against like an army of sharks and crab people, and, you know, someone summoning an orca whale to attack someone. That stuff's great. Like it's very comic booky, it's very out there, it's very ridiculous, it's very campy. But, you know, just embrace it, just go with it. And they did with the costumes as well. And this is very rare, actually. Like everything that I had problems with or was very apprehensive towards in the trailer, I ended up not liking in the movie. Everything that I praised in the trailer, I praise in the movie. Seeing that original Aquaman costume, you know, the orange, we finally get him into that now. It feels like, boom, we have cemented Aquaman as the Aquaman that he should have been. That's nice. The directing, as I mentioned, like the one shots and the camera movements, like just perfect in the action sequences. But I didn't love Jason Momoa in the movie. I didn't love Amber Heard, and the effects and the script had kind of let it down for me. So I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it, but I can at least say there are moments and aspects of the movie that I absolutely will give credit for and praise. So that's kind of my overall opinions of the movie. I think it's very mixed. Now, people are going to zone in on every negative thing I said and will say that I didn't say anything positive about this movie. I did. So, but yeah, what's your overall opinions of the movie be?
I will say it was very enjoyable. I think it's just like a fun movie to go see. If you like don't like, especially for those that like don't like the dark DC movies.
Yeah, thank God they've done that now. Thank God.
I like dark. But I like having a balance. I feel like if I had too much of one thing, I would want the other thing. So it's nice that we have like a little bit of both. So I like going, you know, from one to the other. But like, yeah, if you don't like the dark one, if you just want something like more lighter and fun, like I said, I felt like it was like a comedy sometimes. So go see Aquaman. You know, and if you like seeing beautiful Amber Heard, she did look gorgeous. And that hair, I'm like, how did they make the hair just like I want to know how they did that effect. Because obviously they weren't filming underwater, so I hope they have behind the scenes stuff on the DVD. Because I really know how they filmed that. But it's visually like it is beautiful, especially like if you're watching like on big screen the first time, like I did. I was like, this is so gorgeous, and I thought like this movie, I felt like it could have been, like could have, I guess, you know, because I was a little like hesitant because I'm like, oh, Aquaman, like it would look, it might be like kind of cheesy with all like the sea creatures and the costumes, but I thought they did a really good job of like not making it look like horrible, like, and then making Aquaman cool, because a lot of people, yeah, you know, do make fun of him. So I was like when it was like I think the first scene where he's like in the submarine and kicking people's butt, I'm like, this is what happens when you make fun of Aquaman. He's gonna do this to you. So
I feel like they put that scene at the beginning of the movie purely for that reason. Just like, this is where we stand with Aquaman now, okay? This isn't like the Aquaman that you're all expecting, guys.
And I mean, also, if you're a big James Momoa fan and you just like his personality, you're gonna like this movie because it's very like him, like his personality. Like when he's at the bar and he encounters fans, I kind of thought that was funny, especially with the pink phone. I'm just saying.
That did just seem like something Jason Momoa would do, though. Like if he happened to go to a bar, that's what would naturally happen.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, if you're just like you just like Jason Momoa, like just go watch it. You'll probably enjoy it. But it's, I think, you know, it's not probably not, I guess, like not for everyone, but it's just like I felt like overall it's just like a fun movie. Like you just want to go have fun, watch a really cool looking movie, watch better VFX. Justice League. I think it's just like a fun movie. That's probably how I would like describe it. But it's like I can't even talk about the other scenes though. That made me a little like, because there are some scenes that like I felt like touched you. There was the feels there too. So it's not just like, oh, fun. Okay. So yeah.
Right, we'll get into that now. The last thing I will say, you talked about dark. I don't have a problem with dark superhero movies at all, but I think darkness works for some characters and not for other characters. And I think the problem, at least at the beginning of this cinematic universe, was let's make everything dark. Let's make Superman dark. And I know that you can write a dark Superman. It works for Batman because that's the kind of character it is. But I don't think it works for everything. So I am glad they've kind of broken away from that now, and they are kind of having more fun. Because I mean, if this movie was played like dead straight and serious and somber, this would have been dead on arrival. This would not have worked at all. I think this is absolutely the only way that they could go with it. But yeah, so that's our spoiler-free section out of the way, even though we have sprinkled some little subtle bits of spoilers in there. But this is full-blown spoilers right now. We are talking about, you know, the key components of scenes. So if you haven't seen Aquaman, which is entirely possible because this is the most packed month for movies I think I've ever seen. I still have 2 more movies that I need to watch, and it's almost Christmas, guys. Like, this is insane. But please go and watch Aquaman. Come back to our review because we are going to spoil the hell out of this thing right now. So I'm going to give the floor to you, Itzmoe, because you have some scenes that you want to talk about.
Well, main ones with Nicole Kidman. Because like when like I was really happy that she was in it more than I thought at the end. I was like, that's it, we're not going to see her again. So I was really happy like when she like ended up kind of like saving Amber Heard and everything, and then like we saw her, like I was like, what, she's back. And just like that scene, like I did cry, and like Aquaman saw his mom, and it's just like, oh, because he wanted to meet her so bad. So it just like, it really like touched me that like they finally, and then, you know, she also didn't want to leave him, so it's like they finally get to like see each other and embrace. And so for me, that was like such a like sweet moment. And then when she finally like reunites with his dad, because like, oh, it's just like made me so sad, like when he would go and like every morning sunrise to like see if she's there, and then it's like finally she's back. So that made me really happy, and I cried tears of joy. So I did like that part of the movie, that they did have kind of like those moments. And just have, like that kiss, I love that kiss. Like that was like when I was watching that kiss with Mira and Aquaman, I'm like, that is the best kiss I've ever seen, like on screen. If every kiss in real life was like that, that would be magical. But
I can hear something in the background, by the way, on your mic.
Oh, it's my dog.
Oh, is it like, it sounded like drinking or something, right?
No, he's like scratching. Ryozaki, stop!
Oh, it's fine. Oh no, don't tell your dog to stop. I feel bad now.
No, it's annoying. I don't know why he's doing it.
Ryozaki is the cutest dog I've ever seen, by the way. So
thank you.
Cameo.
Hopefully you'll meet him someday.
Yes, absolutely.
What'd you think about the dad? You didn't really talk about the dad. Did you like him at all, or like Aquaman's dad?
Tamara Morrison. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this now. So first off, Nicole Kidman and Tamara Morrison was the best love story in the entire movie. Like, forget Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. Like, I don't care anything about that. They didn't have any chemistry. I think it's because you open it up and you do spend time with their relationship at the beginning with Tamara Morrison and Nicole Kidman. It is a very sweet thing. And when he says, like, he walks to the end of the pier every day, like, expecting to see you. And if we're talking about, like,
true love, that's true love.
And if we're talking about like Disney comparisons as well, like when he invites her into the house and she's like, he's teaching her how to drink, like Little Mermaid, right, with like the fork, and she doesn't know how to use things. It reminded me a little bit of that. No, I thought it was great, and I'm glad they got Tamara Morrison to play his dad. He's a great actor. He's always going to be Jango Fett to me from Star Wars: Attack of the Clones. I like Nicole Kidman as well. She didn't blow me away by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought she was solid for the stuff that she had in the movie. And I like how they bookended it. That almost is kind of like, because they begin the movie that way and end it that way, that is almost like the emotional core to me. And I do wish we'd have seen more interactions with his dad. Like, I thought all that stuff was great.
I did like. I liked the relationship with them. I'm glad that they showed like them like at the bar hanging out, and then like, you know, he saved them, or well, I guess Miramore saved them. Well, you know, when that storm came and everything, and I was like, oh, I love how like DC does that. Like, they always like show like the parents and like the relationship. We got to see like, you know, Pa Kent and you know, Clark, and then, you know, Queen Hippolyta and Wonder Woman, and now so it's kind of cool. But like Bruce Wayne, obviously they passed away, but like, you know, he goes visits them at the mausoleum or whatever. So I do like that about the DC movies, like how the relationship with the parents and stuff like that, because that's important.
They all have parent issues, all of them.
Yeah.
No Martha scene though in this movie, which is very nice. Like, thank God we don't get a Martha scene like that. There are a couple of things that I think. Do you have another scene you want to talk about, by the way?
Those were the main ones.
Okay. There are a couple of things in here that I didn't quite understand, and maybe this is my limited knowledge of the character and what he can actually do and stuff like that. But the first one's actually plot, because you do get these scenes in the movie where it cuts back to real life sort of like news interviews where they're discussing the existence of Atlantis and everything like that, and they're locked in like a debate with it. And he goes, "What evidence do you have, sir, that Atlantis exists or Atlanteans exist?" When they know that Aquaman, there is a metahuman from Atlantis that can talk to fish and summon the oceans, which they've seen in action and refer to that moment. And he goes, "What evidence do you have?" And he's like, "Oh, we don't really have any." I'm like, guys, like, what the hell? Like, if you've got him, like, how do you not know he came from Atlantis? Like, seriously. So that was kind of weird. And the other thing is, and I guess I just don't know the character well enough, really, I didn't know what could and couldn't harm him. At the very beginning of the movie, he pretty much gets hit point blank range with, like, I don't know, it wasn't like a bazooka or something, or like a grenade launcher or something like that. And it, like, you know, erupts into flame and sends him flying back, smacking against the submarine door. And then he just gets up and there's no mark on him, nothing. So in some action scenes like that with conventional weaponry, there wasn't really any tension there, because you knew that they were like impossibly overpowered and nothing was going to ever harm them. But that's why I liked when, you know, Black Manta came into it and had that awesome like eye laser beam thing, and you do see it like completely burning his skin and actually having an impact on it. So I think that was probably why it was my favorite action scene in the movie, was because it did feel like there was some stakes, that Aquaman was getting harmed, that he was, whereas all the other points in the movie, he's kind of like playing the video game with cheat codes on, right? Like,
well, and also like, well, the King Orm, when he was fighting King Orm, that one, he was kind of getting his butt whooped.
Yeah. But nothing life-threatening. Like, you never see any kind of moments where he's like, you know, he's got like blood in the corner. That's usually what they do in movies, like the blood in the corner of the mouth or something like that. The only time he got injured was that scene with Black Manta. And then when Black Manta's out of the movie, you're kind of just back to watching like really crazy fast, you know, trident fights, and no one's getting injured. So that kind of did take me out of some of the action scenes a little bit, but that's pretty much everything I have to say. I think we've covered it. What was that monster at the end of the movie? I know she did give the name. Was that meant to be the Kraken? Did he summon the Kraken? Because it had like the tentacles of a Kraken, and it also looked like Godzilla erupting.
I don't remember the name, but I think that was Julie Andrews.
Was it?
Yeah, she played a character in it.
Oh my god!
Aquaman.
Carathan, a mythical leviathan that okay, so it's just like a leviathan. I did not know that was Julie Andrews.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Because I was like, the first time I knew she was in it, but they didn't really say what character. And then I saw it the first time, and I'm like, which one was her? Because I couldn't recognize her voice. But then the second time I was paying more attention, I was like, that's her. It's like, you can barely tell it's her because they did play with the, like, you know, add filters or whatever to like change it. But I could tell like it was, I mean, the accent and everything, but I was like, that's Julie Andrews. Wow, that's crazy.
So we've got Mary Poppins Returns out now. This is a very, very different appearance of Mary Poppins in this movie. Like, Jesus Christ. But no, like, it's, for me, it's kind of, talking about it more now. When I went to see it, I really kind of came out like I disliked that movie. But talking about it more now and thinking about some of the positives, it does feel slightly more balanced. I still come down on the side that I wouldn't rush back anytime soon to watch this movie, but I can't deny there are some positives in the movie. So that's kind of where I stand on the movie in that regard. One last thing that I absolutely hated, and this was just in terms of the soundtrack, the music.
Okay.
The Pitbull cover of Toto's Africa when they go to the Sahara
Desert. Yeah, I agree. Why didn't they use the original? Why?
Right? Like I get it, the Sahara Desert, okay, Africa, I get it. Okay, I get why you put the song in the movie. It's a little on the nose.
Yeah. Sorry.
Around the Christmas tree. You should have played that song.
Home Alone. No, but no, yeah, that I definitely like. I'm like, yeah, I like this song, but not. I would prefer the original. Yeah. So
if anyone's made it to the end of this video, please go onto YouTube. Like, don't listen to the song. Like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Do not listen to the song, but go onto Pitbull's cover from the Aquaman soundtrack of Africa and look at the like to dislike ratio bar underneath. It's an absolute trip.
Wow.
But yeah, I think I've pretty much said everything I can on Aquaman. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add or round off.
I think that's about it. Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's it. And if you can, you know, try watching different versions of it. IMAX, 4DX, 3D. You know, try different experiences, see what you like better. But
I'm not gonna lie, like you have sold me on that 4D cinema. Like, I know they exist. I've never been to one in my life. I need to change that fact. Like, if ever I like swing by, like, if I come over LA, like we need to wait till like a big movie comes out, like maybe like Godzilla or something. Like, I don't know, something that's going to be like earth-shatteringly awesome.
I think Aladdin would be fun to watch in 4DX.
Flying carpet,
the Cave of Wonders. It's like that might be kind of fun.
Like, watching that as a kid, I always used to do that myself anyway, when he's like escaping and like the camera like flips around 360, right?
I'd pretend I was like on the magic carpet. Come on, let's go. Oh shoot.
This is a weird tangent to end on. I used to have like a carpet, like a rug in front of my TV when I was a kid. And I always used to like grip hold of like the corners of it and pretend I was on it. That's a weird insight into my childhood right there. But Aladdin is a very different review for another time, and I'm sure hopefully when the live action version comes out, we can get you on a review for that as well, because I know you'll love Aladdin. But this was our review on Aquaman. Please be nice in the comments. Like, I know you guys hate me. I know it. Like, I embrace it at this stage, but just be nice. We all have different opinions on movies.
Yes.
But thank you very much, Itzmoe, for jumping on. I really, really do appreciate it. I know that you're going to jump on another live stream now. I don't know if that's going to be on your channel, on someone else's channel, but let people know where they can find you on your YouTube channels and stuff you got going on.
Yeah, Itzmoe, Itzmoe. Yeah, I'm going to be on another one in like an hour or so on my channel. And also just, you know, subscribe if you like Chris too, because he's gonna be in a vlog when I went to from when I went to London back in May. I finally like getting to edit it, so hopefully within the next few days that vlog will be up when we went to a DC exhibit. So see us like be together in like real life. So subscribe.
I discovered something that day that you actually haven't seen Batman Forever or Batman and Robin.
Yeah,
we need to change this fact. This needs to happen. So
we need to do our live streams watching the DC animated films. But
yes,
but I don't know. We might have to do it on your channel, because I've been doing like commentaries, watching them, and they've been taking them down. Even though I'm not showing any video, no audio, because I'm playing them here. freaking WB is going to take them down. So it's like they don't even want me to talk about their movies. You can't even talk about them, even though I'm not playing the video or audio. So it might have to be on your channel. But
I get claims all the time with my reaction videos, which is, you know, like fair enough. Like nothing like channel destroying yet. Hopefully, like please don't ever do that, YouTube. Like please, I've worked very hard for this channel. But yeah, it's just the current state of YouTube, I think. Anyway, but yeah, we'll have links to your channels and everything down below where people can find you in the description down below. Thanks again for jumping on with me. That was our review for Aquaman. As I said, there are many, many more movies that I still need to get to. I've seen Wreck-It Ralph 2. I'm waiting on George to get his internet back. He's back now, living at his house, so he has fast internet. But obviously, it's the holiday season. We kind of all need a break, so a review will come out of that eventually. I'll be seeing Bumblebee and Mary Poppins Returns later this week, probably Boxing Day. I'm looking at going to see them. Essentially, there'll be many more movie reviews. There'll be more trailer reactions from me as well. Like I need to catch up with Hellboy and the new Men in Black International trailer. And yeah, and Christmas is almost around the corner, so there's a lot to still do. So well, I'll have videos out on the channel before Christmas, so I won't wish everyone a happy holidays right now. But yeah, that'll do it for our video. Until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.